Hey everyone, Brad the mechanic here. Today we're working on a 2016 Audi SQ5. This is the supercharged all-wheel drive, but what we're going to do today is a front driver's side wheel bearing. So what we're going to start out doing is we're going to get the wheel, and we're going to jack it up, get a jack stand under there, and get the wheel off. Alright, so now that we have the car jacked up with the jack stand, you want to get this little cap off. You can come behind here and pull it out, but what I usually do is I stick a pick in here and I come around and I kind of pull it out that way. That way you don't scuff up these too much, especially when it's an Audi and people like to keep their cars nice. I get it. So now these are actually wheel studs, and they are 18 millimeters, actually 17 millimeters. So we're going to get some 17 millimeters and take these wheel studs off. But I will say, if you don't have an impact, you're going to want to set the car down while the wheel is still attached. Set the car down so the tire's on the ground, and then loosen this with your breaker bar, because this is pretty tough to get out. So I'm going to zip these off. But what I'm probably going to do before I do this is I'm going to get my impact on here and try to zip this off. If I can't, I'm going to put the wheel down before taking it off and use the breaker bar. So I'm going to try to do this, but yeah, so that's what I would always say is put this down if you have to use a manual ratchet on this. So I ended up having to put the wheel down, get a breaker bar and a cheater bar. And that's actually a 3/4 to a 1/2 inch adapter. And you're going to need a 19 millimeter for that, and then 17 for the rest of the wheels. So you might have to order this online or something, because a 19 millimeter hex is hard to find. So once you get that loose, we can get it back up in the air with the jack stand and then remove the wheel. Alright, so after getting the wheel off, we have a T35 right here. Thankfully it came out for me. What you might need, if this doesn't come out, you're going to need one of these. And this is a hammer drive set. So what it does is when you put the right bit on there, this one has a Phillips, but you can get a Torx bit for it. Put it on here and you hit it with a hammer, and every time you hit it, it turns it a little bit. This is going to be really good to have. These are like 15 bucks maybe. So now that we got that, we're going to get around back here. I'm going to turn the wheel all the way to the right. Then we can get to the two caliper bolts. And then I'm going to use a piece of brake line or a hook or a hanger or something. I'm going to hang this caliper right up here. So let's do that. So it is a 21 millimeter, and there's 2 bolts on the back of the caliper. We're going to take those off and we're going to hang this caliper up. So after getting this out of the way a little bit, it's hung up there. You're going to want to hang it because there's lines back here that you can't extend. So now we're going to get back here. Well, we're going to take this axle nut all the way off. We're going to take this axle nut all the way off. Then we're going to get back here with our triple square sockets. So you're going to need some of these. Triple squares, and I believe this is a 14 millimeter, or yeah, 14 millimeters in the back. So let's get her done. So the bolts that hold in the back are actually M12s, triple square, to get them out. Sometimes they're 14s because it's going to come, sometimes the bearings come with new bolts, so you can get new bolts. But now we have all the 4 bolts off the back, and now I got to bang on it, try to get this thing out. I'm going to take this all the way off now, and be careful. There was a little bit of grease in this one. I don't know if that's normal, but let's get her done. Now before we bang on it, we're going to take this wheel speed sensor out. It's probably fine to be in there, but it's always better to take this off just so that we don't mess it up when we're taking the bearing in and out of the knuckle. As you can see, we got it out. What you do is when it's in the hole, just twist it back and forth as you're pulling it out, and it'll come out. All right, so I was able to get it out. What I ended up doing is you don't want to hit this the spindle if you're replacing the spindle. Or if you're not replacing the spindle, which we're not replacing the spindle, we're going to press this off of the bearing and into the new one. You can buy these with the spindle already in it, and then you can just swap it off. Okay, so but in case you have to press it, I'm going to show you how to press it on the press. So on the press here, I have the piece that goes in, that fits in the inner race, because we got to push out the spindle. I actually had to use 2 pieces of metal because there's no room in between here to get the normal blocks that you would normally put in. So with this, I'm pumping it, and you can see it's coming down. Boom, shakalaka. Now that we've got the spindle off, and since we're replacing it, we have to take this outer race off of here. So there's a few ways you can do it. You can torch it. If you get it hot, it'll fall off, or you can take a cutoff wheel, cut it down right here, and it'll just kind of fall off once you get it cut all the way through. So I got here the new bearing pressed in. Now make sure when you're pressing it in, this black ring is for the wheel speed sensor. So you want to make sure that this is on the inside, not the outside. So now we're going to get this put up in here and get the new axle bolt on it. Now I've got the, I got it in there, and then I threaded this in a little ways. So what I did was I threaded this in before I put this on and pulled the CV shaft out into a good spot, and then I held it from the back to hold the CV axle in, and then I was able to get this on, and then I threaded this in and slowly tightened it down, and it pulled it all together like it should. So now we got these new triple square bolts we're going to put in the back and get them tightened down. Okay, so we got the wheel speed sensor in, and you could see the 4 bolts that hold on the wheel bearing. You can actually get to them all from this side. Just turn the wheel to the left, and you can get them all with a 1/2 inch ratchet and your 12-point socket, and you can get those off. So now that we have those tight, we are going to get the wheel on, or get the rotor on and the caliper on, and that's 2 21 bolts here. We're gonna put the rotor on, put the little set screw in it, and then we're gonna throw the caliper on. All right, so now we got the caliper on with the 2 21 bolts in. We got the 4 M12 triple squares in, and now I'm going to put the wheel on, and then I'm going to torque this bolt down. And if you want to torque it while the wheel is still off, you can take a screwdriver and put it in the rotor, and that'll keep the wheel from turning when you go to try to torque it down. So once we get this on, we're going to have to torque this down to 147 foot-pounds, and then you got to take your ratchet, and once you get to 150 or 147 foot-pounds, you need to turn it 180 degrees extra. So once you get to 147 and you torque it, you got to turn the ratchet on 180 degrees. So let's do that. So I got this torque wrench set at 147. So now I got to move this ratchet all the way around to the other side, 180 degrees. So what I might do is put a dot of white paint on the bolt so I know exactly when I get it 180 degrees. So I got a breaker bar on here, and I'm going to turn it another 180 degrees. Might be kind of hard to do. Almost there. Almost there. Just a little bit more. Boom. There, as you can see now, the bolts, or the mark I made, is now 180 degrees. So now we're torque's good. So now we can put the wheel on, torque that down, and you're good to go. You don't have to like or subscribe. I just want you to fix your shit. So go out there and fix it, all right? See ya.